Hello and welcome to the City of Durango's 12th Community Update COVID-19 edition. Welcome back. Today I am happy to have Fire Chief Hal Doughty and Executive Director of San Juan Basin Public Health, Liane, Jollon, with me today to talk a little bit about fire season, what's coming up this summer, the face mask order that was recently extended, and what's next for opening up our community. Today, I'd like to start off with our Fire Chief, Hal Doughty. Hal, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. It's great to have you here, and thank you for coming for the first time to this show. I have a couple of questions for you today that I know our community is interested in. And I'd like to start with, it sounds like it's wildfire season, and there have been several wildfires in our area. I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about these fires and what the outlook is for the possibility of more fires in Southwest Colorado this summer.
Sure. So today we have actually 4 fires that are really close to the Durango area that have been sort of the biggest impact on our community. Maybe the most noteworthy of which, but because it's the largest, is the East Canyon fire. And the report from East Canyon fire today is that it's 53% contained, and it's holding at 2,905 acres. The East Canyon fire was the one that was in Cherry Creek, so between the Hesperus area and Mancos, and was burning in the oak, pinon juniper, and some of the ponderosa pine that was in that area. And initially on the day of the breakout, and then in the subsequent days to that, there were several structures in the area that were threatened. I'm glad to report to you that as of today, there have been no structures lost. And so that's a really successful effort on the part of the firefighters. And just like all the wildfires that happen in the area, it ends up being a huge combined effort of our federal partners with BLM and the Forest Service, our tribal partners between Southern Ute fire agencies and Ute Mountain Ute, and then local fire jurisdictions, as well as folks that come in for the fire. A little bit farther out, the 6-shooter fire was the one that happened near Ignacio, and that's 100% contained now. 224 acres total were burned there. The Sand Creek fire is burning in Pagosa, and it's got 0% containment right now. It's 50 acres and is burning in the old burn scar from a previous fire in that area. And they're having a lot of trouble because of the terrain features and dead standing trees that are in the area that tend to fall down when the winds blow. So it's a really hazardous situation for firefighters. And for that reason, they've been using mostly aircraft suppression to try to shut that fire down. The last is a loading pen fire, and that was in Dolores. I believe I'm correct in saying that broke out the same day as the East Canyon fire did. And they're reporting that it's 90% contained at 42 acres. I guess with the outlook for what fire looks like in our area, we're still really, really concerned about the dry conditions that we're facing. I know that the city of Durango took emergency action and stopped the use of any open fires. La Plata County and our federal partners with the Forest Service are still at stage 1 fire restrictions, which basically bans open burning, bans the opportunity to use campfires that aren't in a contained pre-existing fire ring, and recommends really high safety precautions whenever you're dealing with anything like a welding operation or things like that could cause a fire to get out of control. I anticipate that continuing to be the case. We've had some questions about why not go to stage 2 fire restrictions. And the truth is that we're not seeing an occurrence of fires that would be, the cause of those fires would be stopped by moving to stage 2 restrictions. And so we're trying not to impact industry, and we're trying not to stop people from coming to visit our area and being able to have small campfires in campgrounds, taking into account all of the other economic problems that we've got right now. We don't want to go overboard and do more than we have to, but we certainly are going to put the safety of the community first. The last thing that I wanted to mention in that is that based on the current conditions, I, as the fire chief in the Durango area, really feel strongly that it would be quite a poor idea for us to continue with the plan to do fireworks this year. And so for that reason, we've recommended that we do not do the city of Durango fireworks. And I believe that Amber, you're going to have some comments on that as well.
Yes, thank you, Chief Doughty. So our conversations over the past couple of weeks related to fireworks have been great. And we knew where we were headed when we issued the additional order on fire restrictions within the city. And if our community members don't know, we have decided to cancel the fireworks display this year. So thank you. And it's great to have the support of the fire district behind that decision. And we feel very strongly that it is in our best interest, with all things considered, both fire danger and the pandemic this year, for us to make sure that we do everything that we can to protect ourselves from potential fire danger. So thank you for that. My next question for you is, how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected the Durango Fire Protection District, so the department itself and the services that you provide in transport EMS?
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that we all anticipated as we tried to prepare our organizations for what was going to happen in our community with COVID-19 is that we all had an expectation that we were going to experience a really large surge of patients that we would be dealing with in the field that had COVID-19 and needed more significant care than they could provide for themselves at home. And I'm really happy to report to you that that has not been the experience we've had so far. And I think that that's because of a couple of factors that we recognize now. One, I think that our community has done a great job in working to prevent having significant surge and capacity outbreaks with the precautions that we've taken and the steps that we've been working through with the health department on. The second thing is it became very clear to us that people are super focused on trying not to utilize the healthcare resources unless they absolutely have to. And I think that early on that was great recommendations that were coming from the health department and through community partners, and people really heeded that. And we as an emergency transport service worked hard not to take people to the hospital that didn't absolutely need to go there. And we worked around things with people, tried to provide them alternative resources and things like that so that they would not have to be at that location where we were obviously concerned about having patients come in that had COVID-19. And that has, since the stay-at-home recommendations have subsided to a great extent, and we've seen a return of folks to the workforce in our area, and we've seen a higher frequency of people that are getting out of their house for recreation or other purposes. We have seen a pretty large return of our call volume, and I would say now that our call volumes are comparable with what they were last year at this time and in subsequent years. And I think that that's to be expected. Anytime that you've got folks out in the community moving around, working, things like that, we are seeing about the normal flow of that. I will just add that we don't believe that we're past the threat of getting back to the possibility of having a surge of COVID-19 patients. And so we remain very watchful and cooperative with other agencies that are dealing with this so that we can be ready if we do have a large outbreak or we do have a surge that happens in our community now here at this later time. I'm listening very closely when I hear folks on the national scale talk about we're not even through the first wave, let alone into the second wave of this yet. And so as an emergency response agency, we're really trying to heed the warnings and keep good, safe practices ourselves and recommend to the community that they do the same.
Thank you. We are definitely on the same page with the policy group and discussing with San Juan Basin Public Health and watching that national level of, we had the first wave and now all the mitigation efforts are paying off, and we need to maintain that dedication and thoughtfulness as we move forward with our normal lives to defer, delay, and kind of reduce what that next wave ends up looking like. So thank you very much for all the services that you and your team provide to our community. My last question for you is related to economic impacts. So we have seen some economic impacts with the COVID-19 pandemic. And I know there's some questions out there in some community members' minds that whether or not we're all fiscally sustainable or fiscally sound moving forward. So I'd like to ask you if the fire department is fiscally sound and if you feel that you can continue to provide the same level of service to our community.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. That's an important one to us right now. I would say that we've done exceptionally well under the guidance of our board with trying to be super conservative with the way that we spend taxpayer money. And I think that that's an ongoing thing and doesn't have to do with COVID at all, but it's just the way that we try to conduct business. Interestingly, I was asked, I got the chance to speak with the state chiefs group about this very recently. And for those that don't know, the fire department is funded really by three major sources. We have the fire district, which ends up being most of La Plata County that surrounds Durango, that pays taxes direct to the fire district, and that's through property taxation. We have a contract with the city of Durango for service provision, and that's because the city prefers to continue paying most of the funding that they pay for fire protection through the general fund. And so because of those two things, we are really sensitive to both property tax shortfalls as well as sales tax shortfalls as they relate to the city of Durango. So those are two things that we're watching very closely. I'm glad to report that as yet, we are very fiscally sound and that we're not having problems at all funding the fire department. We're still at full strength and we still fully anticipate being able to answer all calls for service. I will tell you that the one very watchful thing that is going to be coming, we believe, to the tax payers and our voters in November is the opportunity to repeal some of the elements of the Gallagher Amendment. The Gallagher Amendment is something that very heavily impacts schools, fire districts, and our county government. And we are going to join wholeheartedly in an effort to try to get some changes made through repealing the percentages associated with Gallagher, just so that our own local constituents understand the adjustment in the Gallagher or from Gallagher that may happen in 2021 is going to cost the fire district about $800,000 a year in revenue. And so if I had to categorize our greatest risks right now, I would say the greatest risk to the fire department and our ability to respond is with the Gallagher adjustment that may be happening soon. Hope you're still on mute, Amber.
Okay, there we go. Thank you so much. That's I think really important information for our community to understand about the Gallagher Amendment. And I'm going to move on to Liane, and if we have any additional questions at the end, we'll come back. So thank you very much, Chief Doughty. We really appreciate you being here with us today to share this information. Liane, how are you today?
Good. It's nice to see you.
You too. So we finished off with fiscal health related to the fire department. I would love to know, how is the fiscal health of San Juan Basin Public Health? This has been a massive impact on your organization, and I'm interested in knowing the fiscal situation for the health department.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. And I appreciate Chief Doughty talking about the Gallagher Amendment and some of the constraints that we have on taxes in the state of Colorado, and really the incredibly conservative lens that all of our governing bodies have to apply to the work that we do. So we all operate very leanly, because that is what operating in Colorado requires. And so when it comes to something really out of the ordinary, for COVID-19, we talk all the time about how it's unprecedented and it's different from what any of us could have had planned for and on staff. And in our case, we are sensitive to local conditions and state and federal conditions for our budget. So the state just passed its budget that goes into effect July 1. We will be seeing some changes to services in our four walls so that we can maintain the level of effort that we have had to put forth to the community for COVID-19. I mean, we've talked a lot here about what we could have seen for the surge and what the expectations may have been, and those didn't materialize in this community because of the tremendous effort put forth by the staff at San Juan Basin Public Health to contain cases. We've done 100% case investigations and contact tracing since March, which is very different than other jurisdictions. So that is one component for why our case count has remained low. Another component is the work that this community put in to take it seriously, to understand what stay at home meant, then to understand what the transition to safer at home meant. And safer at home has had 7 different amendments. Every time a new amendment comes out, there's a loosening of restrictions, but these are careful, metered steps that we have to do a ton of education to the community about how we can reopen, but reopen safely. All of this, is a huge endeavor, and we're going to have to make some changes in our organization to continue this endeavor, because we think it is the most important thing for the health of the community, the economic health, the social health, the mental health, the behavioral health, for us to continue at a high level of effort for COVID-19.
Thank you very much for that, Liane. So you talked about case count and how we've, as a community, done a great job with the efforts from San Juan Basin Public Health, our community members, the city, the regional jurisdictions, all the partners, everyone. One of those efforts are face coverings, as we've continued to open up, and the governor has issued Safer at Home in the 7 iterations, and there's some new guidance that will be forthcoming for next month. The city has extended its face covering order with no end date specific. And I think it would be very important for our community to understand that the order does not mandate to have pre-existing medical conditions where it's not safe for them to wear a mask or a face covering, to wear a face covering. And that's something we haven't talked a lot about on this show. And I think that's one of the pieces of education that might be helpful for us to talk about today, so that individuals who are, doing everything they can to prevent spreading, and they're wearing the face covering, and they see someone who's not, kind of to take a step back and say, oh, maybe that person can't wear a face covering or shouldn't, because it's not in the best interest for that individual. Do you have any comments that you can share with us on that?
Yeah, I think what's most important is that we understand that face coverings are to keep our droplets to ourselves. So we've talked a lot about, the social distancing is keeping 6 feet between you and someone else. If you can't maintain that 6 feet distance, cover your nose, cover your mouth, so that your droplets are less likely to spread to another individual, because we believe that droplet transmission is a huge component of COVID-19. That said, public health is giving recommendations, for the greater good of the community. We never want to stand between an individual and their provider. So if you feel like you need more information from your provider about what's best for you, then absolutely, consult with your provider, find out what makes sense for you. And then another thing we've talked about on these shows over the last, many weeks that we've been doing them is, this is a time for grace and kindness. This is a hard thing we have all been through as a community. So before you see someone without a face covering and make assumptions, I think it's great to say, I don't know why this person isn't wearing one, but I will give them 6 feet distance. They can give me 6 feet distance. And, let's hope that this person is consulting with their provider about what the best course of action for them is. I think that's great advice, Amber. Thank you.
I love that word, grace and compassion. And this has been extraordinarily challenging, and we're learning every day. And so giving each other the benefit of the doubt and then doing what we need to do to stay safe is critical. So let's talk about the most recent guidance, kind of things that have changed in a recap for the community, because considerations of the order with different changes is a lot to take in. So those of our community members that are trying their best to keep up, maybe we can do a quick recap of where we are today and what the guidance is.
Yeah, for a statewide public health order and executive order, we're under what is known as Safer at Home. Safer at Home released the 7th Amendment last week. That we expect to be the last amendment to Safer at Home before the state moves into the next phase. So in Safer at Home, 7th Amendment, what was addressed was, they call them residential camps. I think most of us usually call them sleepaway camps. So that's what gets addressed in the 7th Amendment is the how sleepaway camps can open, which is, we've talked about this so much, how hard this has been for families and for kids. So let's get kids into camp when, safely. So that's what that's about. And then there is new guidance around indoor events and outdoor events. The guidance is pretty clear, and we have links to it on our website. If you are looking to plan an event and need help with understanding the guidance, our staff is available to help you walk through what your event requires. And we're approaching events the same way we've approached everything that's reopened in May and June so far this year, which is a self-certification process, which is you attest to the idea that you've read the guidance, you understand it, you have the resources to perform it. If you have staff, your staff is trained in it. And so now there's event guidance. So, that's been a huge question about what type of events we can have and how we can have events safely, and here today we've talked about fireworks, right? Like that would be an event that could have pandemic implications and have other safety implications for the community. So there are, lots of questions about events going forward. So please visit our website for that information. And remember that we're all part of the big picture of being safe, whether it's safe from wildfires, safe from spreading infection, safe from driving too fast. These are all of our responsibilities as humans to just be part of taking care of each other.
Great, thank you. So we have received some additional questions about the recreation center and opening of gyms, gymnasiums, or workout facilities, and those were covered in which amendment, the 6th or 5th?
The 5th and the 6th.
Okay.
Yep.
And so I believe that most of our recreation programs are opening. I think for the city of Durango, we are working towards opening the recreation center. We did have to lay off staff or not hire the part-time staff for summer programs. So just so our community knows, we are in the process of hiring the staff for those programs and getting things set up. We have submit and had approved the self-certification through San Juan Basin Public Health. And for parents out there listening, the summer programs are opening, and if you are interested in signing up, the city's website through Rec Track, you can sign up for the summer camps, game time, sports camp, all of those programs. And the doors to the recreation center will soon be open. So that is great news for those that are interested in going to the gym and have been waiting for that. Do you have any other items that you would like to add for our community today?
I think we'll just say what we expect next is safer at home. We'll transition to what's called Protect Our Neighbors. It will be a different set of public health orders that come in the month of July. Different communities in the state of Colorado will move into Protect Our Neighbors at different paces. And the idea is for a community to really understand what its resources are to control infection, what, all of the healthcare resources that we've talked about, that Chief Doughty mentioned on this, discussion today. And then, recognizing that as we open up economies, more people come into our communities and there are more opportunities for risk. So how do we mitigate that and address it together? So that's where we'll be. They expect Protect Our Neighbors to be a very long-term phase of this. So the idea is that Protect Our Neighbors should start to look more and more like, I don't want to, not exactly normal life, but more and more like something we can do for the longer haul. So, thank you to everybody for taking this seriously and doing the right things as a community. And we're going to get through this.
Thank you very much, Liane. I have nothing to add there. I think that was a great wrap up. Chief Doughty, thank you so much for your time. Do you have anything else that you would like to add to the conversation and our community?
I do. I think as I listen to all that, I'd just like to also give a nod to both of you. The leadership that you guys have both shown in trying to get your organizations through this has been incredible, and has been one of the reasons why this community has done so well. So thank you both for your efforts. I know this has not been an easy thing on either one of you, and I just really appreciate the leadership that you both have shown.
Thank you, Al.
It's the whole community.
It does.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So, in wrapping up, we have made the decision that we will be moving forward with community updates on an ongoing basis as needed. So as new important information comes forward, or if there are critical pieces of data that come out that are key for our community to know, we will be hosting community updates. So please stay tuned to our social media feeds and look for announcements via Facebook or Twitter, and you can find both of those will be announced via either the City of Durango's webpage and then retweeted or whatnot through San Juan Basin Public Health. And thank you very much, and we hope everyone has a safe week and stays healthy.